The wind cut through the streets of Chicago like tiny knives, carrying the scent of wet asphalt, car exhaust, and the faint aroma of fresh bakery bread. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the gray sky, settling in the cracks of the sidewalks, and creating a white frosting over the city that most people barely noticed. But for 16-year-old Ethan, the snow was just another obstacle in a life that had been difficult since he lost his parents a few years ago. Homeless and alone, he had learned to survive by sleeping in abandoned buildings, scavenging for food, and relying on the kindness of strangers when he could get it. Ethan had a habit he had learned from his father before he died, a habit that clung to him like a second skin: help someone every day, no matter how little you have. It was a strange habit for someone with almost nothing, but it was the one thing that gave him purpose. On mornings like this, when the city was still waking up, that habit drove him to notice things others ignored. He was heading toward the subway entrance near State Street when he saw her, an old lady struggling with grocery bags, one hand clutching a wrinkled shopping list, the other shaking from the cold. Her coat was threadbare, her hat too small, and the wind blew the snow into her face. People brushed past her as if she were invisible, rushing off to offices, coffee shops, and errands, too busy to spare a glance. Ethan's stomach growled at the thought of the sandwiches he hadn't eaten in 2 days, but he didn't hesitate. "Ma'am, let me help you," he called out gently, his voice steady even though his teeth chattered from the cold. The woman looked up, startled, and for a moment, her eyes widened. There was a sharpness to them, a life lived fully, yet softened by weariness. "You don't have to, son," she said, shaking her head. "I know," Ethan replied, smiling despite the chill. "But I want to." With that, he grabbed one bag and motioned for her to take the other. They walked side by side through the slushy streets, Ethan's boots squelching with each step. She told him about her morning routine, her daughter who lived far away, and how she had been struggling to carry groceries on her own. Ethan listened politely, nodding, asking questions here and there, making her laugh when he joked about snow getting stuck in his hair. When they reached her building, the woman pressed a crisp bill into his hand. "Please," she said, her voice tinged with gratitude. Ethan hesitated. He had never refused money before, but something in him wanted to give more than take. "I can't," he said simply. "But, if you have an extra sandwich sometime, that'd be nice." The woman chuckled softly, her eyes glistening with emotion. "You're extraordinary," she whispered, handing him a warm sandwich. Ethan accepted it with a nod and a quiet, "Thank you, ma'am," before turning away to disappear into the city streets, leaving her standing there with a mixture of surprise and admiration. As he walked back toward the subway, sandwich in hand, Ethan felt the familiar warmth of satisfaction that came from helping someone, no matter how small the gesture. He had no idea that this single act, born out of habit and compassion, would ripple through his life in ways he could never imagine. 3 days later, the city seemed alive with the usual chaos, horns honking, people rushing, and the cold wind slicing through every corner. Ethan was sitting near the same subway entrance, eating the sandwich the old lady had given him. The warm bread was a small miracle in his frozen, hungry world. He felt proud, not because he had food, but because helping her had made him feel human. Suddenly, a sleek black car screeched to a stop nearby, tires squealing against the icy pavement. Ethan's head jerked up, and he squinted through the snow. The doors opened, and a well-dressed man with a panicked expression sprinted toward the sidewalk. "Mom!" the man shouted, his voice echoing between the tall buildings. Ethan froze. The woman from 3 days ago, the one he had helped, was with him. She looked exactly the same, but now there was urgency in her step, fear in her eyes. The man grabbed her in a tight hug, his designer suit wrinkling in the process, and Ethan realized something shocking. People around them were whispering, some were taking out their phones, and a few were staring openly. Ethan's stomach churned. Who were these people, and why did they look so important? The old woman's eyes suddenly found him. She smiled warmly, that same gentle smile that had made him feel like a hero. "That's him," she said to the man beside her. "The boy I told you about." Ethan blinked. He didn't move. His heart pounded. The man, now visibly calmer but wide-eyed, turned toward him. You're the one who helped my mother." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I just helped her carry her bags." The man's face went pale. "Do you even know who she is?" Ethan shook his head. "No, she's just someone who needed help." The man straightened, eyes glistening, jaw tight with emotion. "She's my mother," he said, his voice trembling. "I'm Richard Hale, the Richard Hale. And she never mentioned this to anyone." Ethan's mouth went dry. He didn't know what to say. He had only acted out of habit, kindness, and a small sense of pride, but now, the city seemed to fade around him. Richard knelt in front of him, tears welling in his eyes. "Son, you didn't just help my mother. You showed a heart no money can buy. You're extraordinary. You're part of this family now, if you want to be." Ethan's knees nearly buckled, his lips trembled. He had dreamed of a life like this but never dared to imagine it. Richard handed him an envelope with his contact info, a promise of schooling, a home, and something even more precious, love and family. Months later, Ethan stood in front of a mirror, clean clothes replacing the rags he once wore. He still walked past the subway on weekends, not because he had to, but because he wanted to help others, to honor the habit that had saved him. Moral: even the smallest act of kindness can open doors to unimaginable possibilities. True habits, rooted in love and compassion, can change destinies.